Now we're going to attack the circuit boards. We've got to pull out the film capacitors and the electrolytics and replace those. So this is how we do it. It shouldn't be as difficult as doing the cans or as messy, but it's going to be more fiddly, and the potential for doing damage is therefore much higher. So anyway, let's see how we get on. And these are what we have to replace. First we'll start with the 4 electrolytics, and then we go on to the 8 film capacitors, one by one. And this is the diagram from the manual that I'm working with. It's not the circuit diagram, that's much too big and complex to show on a single computer screen. So this is the component location diagram, which lets me know everything I need to. These are the circuit boards. Here we have the high and low level audio board, and this is a headphone amp and stuff like that. So we have our kit of parts here, and I've looked at the circuits and worked out stuff, and we will proceed. You know, these electrolytics here have to be replaced together with you know, these film caps, quite a number in all. So the first step, the instructions said, was to release the boards by removing all these screws, although really I don't know why, because they're so tightly wired in they can't be moved. I'll show you. Here's the other side, and this is the board here that I've released, but there's no way I'm going to be moving that. And so any of the capacitors that are under here are going to be a devil's only job to desolder, and I'm desperately hoping that I don't have to release any of these wires, but I think my chances of that are almost zero. This board here doesn't look so bad, but this, at least we're starting with the worst one, so let's see how we get on. We are going to go for this one, which is C18 on the circuit. So we've got to look and see where that is soldered in on the board on the other side. So what I've done is I've shone a light through the board from the other side and identified it, and it's, excuse me for waving around, it's these two connectors there, and I might be able to get in under there without releasing these. This is like playing snooker, you know, you're trying to pop balls without hitting other ones. It's a nightmare. Anyway, stop moaning, carry on. So the 2 tags we've got to go for is this one and that one, and they're kind of just visible underneath this coaxial lead. So wish me luck, I'm going in. So my solder sucker is armed and dangerous, but not nearly as dangerous as this soldering iron. So first we go in here. And then this is the really dodgy one. Let's just take a look. Well, I think one of them's free, the other one might not be. Let's just give it a tug. One leg is free, the other one is not. So I can't tell you how dicey this is. We had 2 of us, it'd be easy. You just warm up that side and pull the damn thing out, but then you still have the problem of clearing the hole. Ah, and there, like a dodgy tooth, out it comes. And here is the replacement. So we feed that in from this side of the board, and this is on a tripod. I can't really see too well, can you? Feed it in from the other side of the board, basically, is what we're saying, and then solder it. Get back to you. Well, I'm not sure I can do this one-handed, but back to get in my own way. But there we are. It's through. It's in, and it is the right way round. These are electrolytics, remember, so you've got to get them the right polarity. So now turn it over and just pull the cables through. So you can't see, probably you can't see this, but here we are on the other side of the board, and just here you can see the cables, the wires coming through from the cap. I've pulled them through, and now I just got to solder them in. That's all there is to it. Well, I've done the soldering, so I'm just using my magnifying glass here to get a close look, and it looks as though those joints are good. Just give them a tug. Yep. Then we just need to cut the leads off, and that one's done. So last check, and that one is soldered, so that one is done. So here is the virgin board, and to allow me to keep track of what the hell I'm doing, here is C18 now marked off. I'm going to try to avoid this video getting too long and too uninteresting, so I'm just going to skip through the rest of these electrolytic caps. So this is C17, which is now done, followed by C23 and C24. So that's the electrolytics done, and then we'll move on to the film capacitors. So now we're going to start doing the film capacitors, and let's see if they're any more difficult than the electrolytics. In my head, I think they're probably going to be easier because they're bigger. It all depends if anything is hiding under here. So I have my eye on the first one to replace, and you identify the wires by shining a light through the board and cross-checking with the schematic diagram that you've already seen, and I think that it's just here, it's from there to there, so I'll double check and then apply the iron. So I think it's the third tag down, which is that one, so I think the cap runs from there over to there. Excuse me if I get in my own way. Trouble is I keep finding the point on the circuit diagram and then explaining it to you guys, and then I come back and I lose it. I think I'm definitely losing it anyway. Here we go. So we need to turn it over and see if we can pull it out. And there it is. Now to get this to go in right, you've really got to bend these legs like that, and then measure the hole in the board, which is here somewhere. You see, I've lost it again. Yeah, it's there. All right, so if we now bend that, that just gave me an idea of where it was. If we now bend that over there like so, just clean up the ends, and I'll try to shove it through the board. It wouldn't go through the board. It turns out I'd unsoldered one end right, but big but I unsoldered this when I should have unsoldered that buried under there. So I really don't know how that cap fell out. Makes you think, don't it? Okay, let's try to unsolder the right. Now, what I'd found was a classic dry joint there, so maybe fixed a fault as well. So these are the two cables, two leads we need to solder, and this one up here I unsoldered in error, but I fixed that. So let's go back. I'm sorry if I get in your way. One. Moly. Two. Okay, now we'll check it. Now I'm just taking a magnifying glass to check those solder joints, and they look good to me. So we'll just nip them off. One, two. So that's the first one in. So here was the electrolytic I replaced, and this is the new film capacitor that's in there. There's a replacement for the one that looked like that. So I don't think you need to watch me do the other 9 or 8. So I'll get back to you. If I run into a problem, I'll come back to you before that. Well, the high-low level board has now been finished, and the replacement capacitors are here, 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 there, 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 and there, and the electrolytics there, there, and where, there, and there. Now I notice there are some little electrolytics here that aren't in the kit, and I don't know why. You can see them here circled in red. These should be electrolytic capacitors, so they really ought to be replaced. There are a number of other caps circled in yellow which are just film caps, and so I don't think they're important. And I've written to the man that made the kit and asked him, so I'll get back to you on that if I can. So one thing, in future reference, do not follow the instructions and unscrew the board. It added about 2 hours to the job, and it's completely unnecessary. You'll never shift that board even with the screws out. There are too many wires on the bottom. And this one here is the next board. This is the headphone and filter amp board. There aren't so many wires on the back of this. Maybe it will be easier. Faint hope indeed. Anyway, that's next. Just a footnote on the missing capacitors. Now this is a photograph of the board of the guy that sent me the kit, and you can see these capacitors are not electrolytic, they're film caps. But this is a photo of part of my board, and you can see the same caps are obviously electrolytic. And here we see them shown on the component location diagram from the manual, and one of them has distinctly got a plus against it, which means it's electrolytic. And here are those components in the equipment list from the manual showing they're electrolytic. So something weird is going on here. I have noticed that there's more than one version of the manual and more than one version of a given board, and I had to make sure that my version of the board at least had the same number as his. What I suspect is going on is that his version of the board that he worked out the kit for had film capacitors in there instead of electrolytic for some reason or other, and mine doesn't.
So either someone had been in there to change out his electrolytics in error, which I very much doubt, or there's a different version of the board hanging around. Anyway, I've checked the electrolytics that came off this board and they're all okay, so I'm probably going to leave well enough alone. Bye bye.